Impressive stuff from the NBA Draft Combine with measurements, drills. Let's talk about the winners, the losers. Did it change the Wizards or the Jazz minds who they're going to draft? Let's talk about it. It's Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys, like always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into this. So, the NBA Draft Combine is underway. The measurements were good. I don't think, let's just go through each prospect. So, AJ Dybantsa, potential #1 pick, along with Darren Peterson, potential #1 pick, came into this draft combine, gave their medicals. I don't think we're going to see those, obviously. They get interviews with teams. Obviously, we will not see those. I would love to be a fly on the wall for those different interviews and how they went. But the big thing that teams are obviously going to be watching is how tall are these guys actually? And basically, it came back that they're about as big and tall as we expected them. AJ Dybantsa, 6'8.5" without shoes. Just a reminder, basketball players play the games with shoes. So, however deep or thick you think those soles are, they are bigger or taller than what their barefoot measurements are. 6'8.5" without shoes was AJ Dybantsa. Great size. And the thing that really stood out for AJ Dybantsa was actually today in day 2, where he had a 42-inch vertical. So we have AJ Dybantsa, who's somewhere between 6'9" and 6'10" with shoes on, and is now jumping a 42-inch vertical. Is bonkers. The athleticism with him is just top of the entire draft. You know, sometimes you've got guys that are just crazy athletes, but it's not as much functional. We know that that athleticism with Debonsa is functional, and so he is just going to be tier 1 prospect, tier 1 athlete when he comes into the NBA. Now, the shooting drills were not quite as solid for Debonsa. That is obviously the thing where he is going to need to do a lot of work. It wasn't bad, but it also showed that there's some work there. And I think when Debonsa comes into the league, the athleticism is going to pop. The size is going to pop. The comparable size for Debonsa is Paul George, who people forget. Paul George is huge. When you see him in person, he is every bit of 6'10", and Debonsa is right there, just huge on the wing. And so just combining his 6 foot 8.5 without shoes, 6'9", 6'10" with shoes height is fantastic. And then with that 42-inch vertical, he is going to absolutely be a highlight every night. And when he gets the scoring ability locked in, the shooting, it's good night. It really is. And that's where Debonsa has that upside to be a top 5 player, to be honest, because of just that incredible bag of tools he has. The physical tools with the width, the wingspan, the height, and then the athleticism. It's all there. It's all there. And that's why he's being looked at #1, and a lot of people have him as the consensus #1. It could change. Now, Darren Peterson comes in. He measures in at 6'4.5" without shoes. Just like Debonsa, he's going to be 6'5", 6'6", because we play basketball with shoes on. Weighs 199 pounds, so he's right at 200. And then a wingspan of 6'9.75", which is high level. That's a +5. So Debonsa was 6'8.5" without shoes with a wingspan of 7 foot. That 7 foot 0.75, so that's a +4.25 wingspan. Fantastic. That's great for Debonsa. Very solid. It's not insane, but it's very, very good. So no red flags for Debonsa with the wingspan. And Darren Peterson, even better at a +5. So the wingspan is great for both of them. That portends well to the defensive side for both. The thing we know about Darren Peterson is that that is already translating. He is a high-level steals guy. block percentage, steal percentage for Peterson is underrated and an underrated aspect of his game. He is a two-way player. That's one question mark with Debonsa because some of the percentages and defensive numbers are not good with Debonsa. Doesn't mean he can't do it. He has the tools to do it. And something tells me that he will be fine. But there is an element to be worried about. Now, everything that BYU did was geared around Debonsa, and sometimes those guys are saving themselves on that defensive end. I think Debonsa has a chance to be an elite defensive player just because the physical tools are there. But he hasn't really shown it yet. So, you know, what people are and what they actually do sometimes are two different things. Players and people, right? So we'll see. But something tells me that Debonsa will be fine. The thing that has to be encouraging for Darren Peterson fans is that he's already shown it. And these measurements show that as well. Now, his drills were not as eye-popping as Debonsa, but I don't think anyone was expecting anything too crazy. Peterson came in with, I think, a 37.5-inch vertical, which is very good. It's not as high as as Debonsa with his 42, which is just eye-popping. But it's also not bad. So it's somewhere in the middle of the road with the top tier, NBA athletes. It's good. Probably more of an athlete like an SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, with his ability to just control, body control, ability to score at every level, whether it's drive to the basket, stop on a dime, pull up, score. Those are the things that Darren Peterson does. The thing that was really eye-popping for Darren Peterson, and if you haven't go watch the drills, but he went 19 for 25 in spot-up shooting drills. He was top 3. What's crazy about his shooting is that it just looks so effortless. And you watch him do the drills, he's almost bored. He's just knocking down 3 after 3 after 3, and it's just perfect arc, perfect form. His form is beautiful, by the way, guys. When we talk about basketball shooting form, Klay Thompson has one, pre-injury, one of those forms that's just perfect. And Darren Peterson has it. Maybe his release is a hair low, but it's just perfect and perfect form, and he shoots it perfect every time. And then you combine that with his ability to handle the ball and just everything he does, it's just perfect. And he's 19. He looks like a player that's coming into the league and has already been in the league for like 5 years, right? And he just has every tool in his bag. He can do it all. 3-level scorer, 4-level scorer with the floater. He looks like he's going to draw fouls perfectly fine. What's exciting about Peterson, too, is just the fact that he's going to be a two-way player. He's a good defensive player. I don't know if he's going to be first team all defense, but I wouldn't count it out. But he's going to be a guy that can average 2 steals per game. He can play good defense. And that's something that matters for this Jazz team as well, that if you have him on the perimeter, he's just an extremely good team defender, right? I don't know if he's a lockdown one-on-one defender, but there's no reason why he can't be, right? The numbers and the measurements and the agility shows that he'll be just fine. And that's the exciting part about Peterson. The thing I would just describe Peterson as is he's the perfect size for the shooting guard. 6'5", 6'6" with shoes, whatever you want to say. There is no hole to his game. None. Defense, offense, shooting, driving, drawing fouls, catch and shoot threes, pull up threes, running a pick and roll, passing. He does it all. Now, he's not a John Stockton, Steve Nash, Chris Paul type of point guard where they're creating open passing lanes by their ball movement, their handle, and things like that. But there's no reason that he can't be either. He's 19. There's going to be the thing that's one thing to consider with these players is you're looking at what they are now. And this is an important draft concept in general, but you're also drafting based off of what you think they will become. So, these numbers in college matter. The shooting numbers and all these things matter. The film does matter. I think especially like on the defensive end sometimes, which, people may look at the Debonsa film and think maybe I need to draft Peterson. I don't know. I don't think Debonsa at 1 is a given at all, guys. I think Peterson, there's, the Wizards may talk themselves into Peterson. And then Debonsa falls to Utah and it's a happily ever after. But anyways, these teams are drafting based off of what they think these players can eventually be and how long that will take, right? Debonsa, Peterson are both players that you can easily see being elite scorers and just elite players in the league. I think Debonsa has a little bit more upside just because he's 6'9", 6'10", 42-inch vertical. That just raises his ceiling, right? There are going to be times where Debonsa is just going to do things that absolutely blow you away, right? Whereas I think Peterson is going to be the type of player like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where he's just an assassin. Just his skill level is so elite, and he may be one of those guys that scores so effortlessly that you can't stop him, right? So there's just no losing with these two guys. And either way, you're looking at different paths to stardom, but stardom is going to happen with both, unless injuries or who knows what happens. Some unforeseen thing happens, right? Finally, two other guys. We'll talk about Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson. Cam Boozer showed once again that he's good at everything. Shooting. His shooting was right there with Darren Peterson. He shot after Darren Peterson, I believe. 19 for 25 as well. His form is great. The only thing is the vertical is not particularly great. It's actually pretty decent, but not like, that's the worry. But the thing is actually I think it was a little better than people thought. I think it came in at 36 feet. Let me just search this really quick. His measurements and numbers were actually a lot better than people think. I saw that ESPN talked about, they talked about Cameron Boozer. Let's see. So his height without shoes, let's see. Cameron Boozer, 6'8.25. So he's actually a quarter-inch shorter than AJ Dybantsa, which is crazy. But let's see if they... I don't think they have it here listed, but I believe it was 36 inches. So it's an inch and a half less than Darren Peterson. Still very good, and I think better than people expected. I think Cameron Boozer is one of those guys that you've got to watch the film, because the film during the tournament was just not good on the defensive end. And that's the question. And he moved well in the drills, but it's just looks a tiny bit clunky to me. And so I do think the biggest question mark for Cam Boozer, offensively, he's going to be good. His game is going to change. And the NBA, so much of what he did in college was like back to the basket, getting the ball in the post. That just doesn't happen a lot in the NBA. It doesn't mean that the teams won't do that. And that wasn't the only thing he did. He can do everything else. Drive, catch and shoot threes, pull up threes. You could run some pick and roll with Cam Boozer, and I think you need to maximize his ability, especially if you're picking him at 3. You need the ball in his hands more. And that's another question mark for me, at least a little bit with Cam Boozer, is how much can you run the offense through Cam Boozer? To me, that's why Peterson and Debonsa, in my opinion, are the 100% should be drafted 1 and 2 in whatever order you have, because they are on-ball stars. When you are winning the lottery, you want to find a guy that you give them the ball and they run the show and they win. Because in the end, basketball is very simple. There's 5 guys on the court. One guy holds the ball a lot. It's like the quarterback in football, but in basketball, it's even more pronounced. That guy, you want your best guy having the ball in his hands as much as possible. When you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Michael Jordan, all these guys are on-ball stars. You want the ball in their hands as much as possible. And that's the thing with Cam Boozer. Is he a guy that plays off the ball more? How much can you do putting the ball in his hands? And in the NBA, are you going to do a lot of back-to-the-basket stuff? Probably not. That's why I personally worry a little bit about Boozer, is because he's kind of a old-school style player. Nothing wrong with that. He's going to be an all-star caliber guy. I just think that it's, who knows? We'll see. And maybe he just shows and flourishes in ways that we haven't seen, and that's certainly possible. So we'll see. But what we do know is that despite some of the athleticism that didn't quite show up during the college season, he still was a monster. The question mark I have personally is, was he dominating guys in college that are not athletes, that are not NBA athletes and NBA bodies? And will that change in the pros? We shall see. He'll most likely be fine. His game, in my opinion, might need to adjust a little bit. We'll see. We'll see. But he shot the ball fantastic. His measurements were better than I think people expected. And so maybe he turns into something great. And, you know, I think ESPN compared him to Bam Adebayo size-wise, more or less. Can he be kind of a center? He can't protect the rim, so that's what makes it difficult. He just can't. And that makes him more of a 4 at that point. That's difficult because then, you know, a lot of times your position you play is who you guard. And if he has to guard 4s, then that means you got to have a 5 on the floor. I don't know. We'll see. He's very interesting, but I don't know. Caleb Wilson, his vertical was better than Cam Boozer, but it was not as big as Debonsa. I can't tell you that 42-inch vertical for Debonsa is monster and literally might have locked him up at the number 1. But Caleb Wilson comes in at 39.5, 2 inches more than Darren Peterson. He is known for his athleticism and what he can do. I'm a little surprised it wasn't bigger. I thought he'd come in with a high vertical as well. So just shows how big that vertical was for Debonsa, but still very, very good. Just under 40-inch vertical for Caleb Wilson, whose biggest draw right now is just the size, length, and athleticism. His measurements were very good. Let me pull those up real quick. Caleb Wilson with the, let's see, with the height without shoes, he comes in at 6'9.25. So he's 6'10", 6'11". Fantastic size. Really good wingspan. Let's see, the wingspan. Let's see where that is. For Caleb Wilson, the wingspan comes in at 7'0.25, so not quite as long as you would have hoped if you're a Caleb Wilson fan. That's right there with Debonsa. So, guys, there's just some eye-popping stuff with Debonsa. It's just, man, it's just crazy. And so Caleb Wilson comes in pretty darn solid. I think he can play. The thing that makes Caleb Wilson so interesting is he's such a hybrid athlete and physical specimen in some ways. He is, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the draft. He just uses that width, that length and size and athleticism extremely well. And so he, to me, like, you know, kind of what Cam Boozer is on offense, Caleb Wilson is on defense. And if you're drafting Caleb Wilson, you're betting that his shooting can improve because his shooting at the combine was pretty stiff, not great, but it looked workable is how I would describe it, right? So he did not show up particularly well at the three-point line. If Caleb Wilson came in and knocked down threes at a high level, he would have turned heads, but he didn't really do that. So if you're drafting Caleb Wilson above Cam Boozer, you're kind of taking a risk because, you know, you're hoping that he can develop that shooting. Now, the big thing that Caleb Wilson will do in these draft combines is his interviews, because one of the big draws and big things about Caleb Wilson is the personality, the drive, the motor. The guy is a winner and he wants to win. He'll do anything to win. The competitiveness is amazing. I have a hard time seeing Caleb Wilson not turning into a solid three-point shooter. And I think what's really nice about Caleb Wilson is he is a playoff type guy. The quote from Draymond Green that I really like is that there's 82-game guys and there's 16-game guys. And the 16-game guys are the guys that you want on the floor during the playoffs because of what they do. And what Caleb Wilson can do is play 3, 4, or 5 at times because of just his length, athleticism, and size on the defensive end. And that's a big deal because these days in the NBA, you've got to be able to switch. And Caleb Wilson is just a weapon on the defensive end, right? So I could see Caleb Wilson being first team all defense for many years and just maybe even winning a defensive player of the year, although that's going to be hard as long as Victor Wembanyama is in the NBA. But Caleb Wilson definitely can be in that first team all defense discussion. And then if the offense comes around from three, fantastic. We know what he can do driving to the basket, and he's got a mid-range game. There's a lot to like. It doesn't mean he's a bad offensive player, but the real question mark is going to be, can he shoot the three? And if he can do that, then Caleb Wilson gets extremely interesting, right? So nice night for all of these guys. I don't know how much it changed. I do think my biggest wow factor was the 42-inch vertical from Debonsa. The size is fantastic. The shooting and skill level from Peterson was on display, and we know what he can do. So exciting stuff for, the Jazz, the Wizards, and obviously the Grizzlies and Bulls as well. They have a lot to discuss, and it'll be kind of fascinating to see if the Grizzlies decide on Caleb Wilson over Cam Boozer, or if they go with probably the safer pick in Cam Boozer. Either way, it's a win for them, and it's a win for all of these teams that jumped in the top four. Guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to the All-Stars. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it. And if you'd like to support the channel, just hit join down there. And I am going to work my tail off to try to really build this out to make those memberships even more valuable, so everyone feels like they're getting what they should. Anyways, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I will talk to you next time.